Okay, good evening. We're up to the Mishnah on Lamed Vav Amid Beis. Lamed Vav Amid Beis. We're discussing Sanhedrin, and we're going to get an idea of the physical setup of the Sanhedrin. Says the Mishnah, Sanhedrin hoisa kichatzi goyrin agula. The Sanhedrin was like a half granary agula. It was like a half moon, as we're going to see. So the reason was Kadesh Yiroyin says in order they should go ahead and see each other, because if they would go ahead and not, and if they would be, let's say, in a full circle, you wouldn't be able to see everybody. I guess the Baldin would not be able to stand in front of them. Let's see Rashi. Kichatzigar and Agula, Ba'agula hoya yoshvin, Kidei, Sheyukulan Royan Zezed, they can see each other. Now, this is not only the 71, this is also the 23. She'im hoyu yoshvin b'shura, if they would sit in a row, ain't pnei rishonim Royan Zezed, then the ones that they could not see each other. Ubagula Shlema and Yashvim, but in a full circle they could not sit. If you should srichin bali adinim va'edim likonis ledava ledabim if they kulam, he has to go ahead and speak in front of all of them. If you kulan royin as edim umedagdim midevrayim, and all have to see the edim as they make their presentation and listen to their words and analyze the words. And it shouldn't be that the edim should be seeing some and their back will be to another. Again, if you're in a full circle and the edim is sitting in the middle, or by the physical chance, it has to be that you're looking at the back. So therefore, when you're in a half moon and they're presenting in front, so everyone can see the edim. Two stenographers would be standing in front of them. Echad miyamin ve'echad mismal. V'koisvin divrei hazakoyim. I'm going to change the gersa. Divrei hamizakim v'divrei hamechayavim. Okay, so it says Rashi. Who are we speaking about? Shneim koisvin divrei hamizakim u'shneim koisvin divrei hamechayavim. Each one wrote down the words of each presentation of what the Dayanim said. The ones they wrote down the words of the Zakai, and they wrote down the words of the Mechayev. They wrote down the words of the Zakai, and they wrote down the words of the Mechayev. Right. So if they can go ahead and make a mistake, they'll be able to check.
Each one separately. In other words, one wrote all the positive and the other
Incorrect.
negative.
Incorrect. Rashi says Rashi Shneim Koisvin Divrei Hamizakim Ushneim Koisvin Divrei Hamechayavim. Shnehem Koisvin Divrei Hamizakim. What does that mean? Both of the scribes wrote the words of Mizakim. Ushneim Koisvin Divrei Hamechayavim, and they both wrote down the Divrei Chayavim. Shem Yitoha Echad, if one of them made a mistake later on, Yachiach Ksavei Shel Chavero, the other one will disprove it. But they wrote down everything. They wrote down everything. That's the Shitas of Rashi. Heshi just quoted the Rambam. The Rambam in Aleph from Sanhedrin Halacha Tes, he writes that you would write down one of them will write down the words of the Chayavim, and the other one will write down the words of the Zakoyim. Good.
How would you know which one was making a mistake if there are only two?
Right. Again, the Rambam obviously doesn't hold like that. The Rambam says you have the words of both, and you have a third party. Let's see what goes on here. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer Shloisha. You'd have a third party. Echad Kaisiv Divrei Hamizakin, ve'echad Kaisiv Divrei Mechayavim. So according to Rashi, Rashi says, there's so much that they have to go ahead and deal with. He disagrees. So that the only one wrote down Chayiv, one wrote down Pater, and now the third one Kaisid Divrei Kulam. Since it's not such a tircha, because one only has to concentrate on the chayavim, and one only has to concentrate on the mezakayim, then you katsru b'davar. One of them makes a mistake, the third party. So really the third guy's got the onus on him. He's the one who has to write down everything. So Rashi's shita is that according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to the Tanakama, there isn't a third party. Both wrote down twice. According to the Rashi, according to the Rashi's pshat in the second one, in Rabbi Yehuda, the one wrote down the Zakayim, one wrote down the Chayavim, and the third party wrote down both. What does the Rambam do with that? So he knows the following. This is right in Pirush Mishnayos. One is writing down the Chayavim, one is writing down the Zakayim, and the third one is writing down both. So now you have Eidus on both. And that's the way the Rambam learns. Okay. V'shalei shura shel Talmidei Chachamim Amid Aleph. V'shalei shura shel Talmidei Chachamim yoshvin lefneihem. They would have 3 rows of Talmidei Chachamim sitting in front of them. Kol echad v'echad makir es mekomo. Each person would recognize his place. Now, what are we talking about? We had this early in the Masechta, fellas. The Bezdin is 36. Let's say you'd have a person died, or let's say a person configured, he says any idea, and you have to add up. So you'd have to add 2, and add 2, and the most you can go is 71. The most you go to 71. So now, if you have 23, right? So another 48. 48 would give you 48 and 23 would give you 71, right? 48 and 23 would give you 71. So really, you should have 48 sitting in front of you, correct? So what would you do? You'd have a line of 24, and a line of 24 is 48, guys. So you wouldn't need 3 rows sitting in front of you, 2 rows sitting in front of you. However, each one of those rows would be bigger than the Bezdin, because Bezdin's 23, and therefore that would be 24, right? That would be 24. So therefore, that's not an option. So you need a 3rd row. So what would you do? You'd have 23, and 23 is 46, and then you have a row of 2. So therefore, you'd have a bunch of extra. You have 3 rows of 23s. That's what Rashi says. That's how Rashi explains that getting why you have so many. You have 23, 22, 23 is about 60, 69. You have 69 sitting in front of you. You have more than 2. You have 69 sitting in front of you. You have 3 rows of 23 hash. You have much more.
No, so let's say Bezin is 71.
What?
Let's say it's a Bezin of 71.
Again, you can't go. You only need 48 to get 7.
Yes.
You only need 48 to get 71. You have an overload. You have an overload. Okay. So now, you'd have these 69 people sitting in front, 3 rows of 23, and kul echad v'echad makir es mekomo. Each person would go ahead and recognize his spot. So, fellas, here's the way it's going to work. On row number 1, let's say 1 through 23, 1 is the greatest of all those 69. 2 is the second greatest of the 69. In other words, they're going in order of Chachma. So if someone, let's say in the Bezdin, dies and they need a replacement, number 1 in row 1 would go up. If they need another one, then number 2 in row 1, and they would then go down. From row 2, you would replace the slots 23 and 22. They would be taking the spot, and then you'd add 2 people from learned people to the last row. So basically, it's a line. You're going down the line and working along. 1 through 69. 1 is the greatest. 69 is the weakest. And therefore, when you're replacing, once 1 goes and 2 becomes 1, you're going to have to replace 69 becomes 68. You're going to have to replace another one.
Conceptually, the first time you do that, it makes sense. The brightest, the best is number 1, and the lowest is the weakest is number 6 is 69. But then when you start replacing, the last guy may be greater than the guy in the front row. No, conceptually not. Because the number 1 is greater than 6. They're all greater. They're set up that way. I know, but let's say
the guy dies. So the guy who dies, so not one of the people in the audience is as great as the Dayanim. Not one of the people in the audience is as great as the Dayanim.
Keep the new guy.
Again, we're not speaking about the Bezdin Hesh. We're speaking about the crap. You're mixing up things. We're speaking about the people sitting in front of them.
Oh, okay.
We're not speaking about the Bezdin. You're speaking about the people sitting in front of them. A guy dies in the Bezdin. Any one of the 23 people of the Bezdin is greater than the 69 sitting in front of them.
Okay, that's
you mixed up the 2. So again, that's how you're replacing down the line, and that's pretty much each seat is just going. You're going along. So that's what the Mishnah says. So each person if you need to go ahead and give smicha, meaning to give it a new one, soimchin min harishayna, you would go ahead and take from the first row. And echad min hashniya bola l'rishayna. Then one from the second row would come to the first row and replace. So in other words, he'd be going from being 24, which is the first one in the second row, to 23, which is the last one in the first row. Right? Okay. Echad min hashlishi bola l'shniya, and one from the third row would come to the second row. They would choose one from the kahal, and they put him in the third row. Ella Yoshe b'makom arayla. You know, you don't go ahead and place him in the place that the guy who was what from who was in the first of the last row, then you put him in the last of the last row. You know, that's the way it works. You pass it down the line. Okay, says the Gemara, Minani Mili. Okay, Minani Mili that they sat in a half moon, literally. Amar Vacha Machanina, the Yamakra, Shavarech. Shavarech means your belly button, your navel. Agan Hasahar Al Yechser Hamazek. Literally, in the words of Art Scroll, your navel is like a moon-shaped basin. Let not the strength of the mix be diminished. As I state. Okay, now, now, so you have over here, what does that mean? Shararech, Su Sanhedrin. Now, why are they called Shararech? Why are they called your navel? They're sitting in the middle of the world. The Lishkas Agosis in Eretz Yisrael, Mamish is the middle of the world. So they're similar to the navel, which is in the middle of the body. Agan, what do you mean Agan? Shehi Megina al Kala Olam Kulai. With their laws, the Agan Lashon Magen, to protect. They protect what? The world. Hasahar, right, which is the moon. Shehu Daimel Sahar. They sit daimeh to a moon. Al Yechsar Hamazeg, and their mix should not be what? Diminished. Shem Hutzrich Echa Mehem Latzeis. If one of them has to go, for whatever reason, Royan, and Yesh Esem V'Shalish Keneged Sanhedrin Katana Yaitza, V'Mlav Eni Yaitza. In other words, there's 71 fellas. If they have to go, you go. But you know, a lot of people have to go midwinter vacation. They always have to have. They can never get less than 23. And the best night God of 71 can never be less than 23. Suga. Now, continuing along with the psukim in Shir Hashirim. Continue along with the psukim in Shir Hashirim. Suga b'shashanim, hedged by a rose bush. Now, a rose bush is used as a barrier, is not a very strong barrier, correct? So, shafilu kisuga shel shoshanim lo yifritzu behem pratzais. Even though the Jews are a lot like rows of hedges of shoshanim, they don't give in easily. It's hard to break through. The Yetzer Hara is hard to break through. V'haynu da'amalei hahu mino l'Rav Kahana. This min said to Rav Kahana, Amarisai nida shari liyichud bahade gavra. You say that a nida, a wife, when she is a nida, is permitted for yichud with her husband. Efshe eish bin oires. Is it possible an eish is in the linen, is in flax? Ve'ena mahaheves. How can you know? The reason for yichud, the issa yichud, fellas, is to avoid arayos. So what? You have a woman who's a nida. How is it possible that what? You don't make a separation? That's what this min is. Yes, Rav Kahana. Amalei Rav Kahana told the min, "Hatayra idu aleinu." That suga b'shashanim shafilu kisug b'shashanim lo yifritzim pratzis. In other words, they're not going to go ahead. The Jew is not going to give in to what his Yetzer Hara, and therefore that's the protection. That's the protection. Interesting Taisus over here, guys. Let's say top Taisus. Only one top Taisus. 2 lines down. Vim Taimar. Vayichud deraisahi kidashina and mechi yisischa chicha beni mecha vehechi asi krol divri kabbalah. You get a pasuk from divri kabbalah of sugi b'shashanim lemishrei ma'idich baraisa. How can this go ahead and permit? You know, how can you permit a man to be with his wife when she's a nida? L'chayrit yichud's deraisa. Says Gemara v'yeshleim ad lo yasser toyre ela kein imay. Like the kisischa achicha, like similar to your mother. Lo yavidi the mishrei. She'll never be mutter to you. Aval nida seifuli tahar. Nida in the end will be mutter to you. So a man has no. You have pas b'saloi. Obviously, guys, we know the famous Gemara in Ksubis, at the beginning of Ksubis, right? That if there wasn't not a beer yet, and it's a chuppus nida, we don't let them sleep together, right? So the Taisus that you say of okay, back in the Gemara. Like again, art scroll, like a section of pomegranate is your temples. I feel reikonim shabach, even the reikonim, the empty people in Klal Yisrael, Malay mitzvahs karima. They're full of mitzvahs like what? Like a remind, and therefore again, it's not so they'll stay away from Averis. Reb Zera Amamehacha, Vayorachas Reach Begodov. Now they came in, he smelled, says the Torah Chaim, it smelled terrible, and nonetheless to Yitzchak it smelled good. Al Tikri Begodov his clothing, but when Yitzchak came, Yaakov came in dressed in Esau's clothing to steal the brachas, Ella boigdov. He smelled the reich of the boigdov. In other words, even though they were boigdov, they were rebellious people. Even though they were rebellious, they still smelled like what? Mitzvahs. They still had mitzvahs. They had a good smell to them. Hani B'Yoni, there was these gangsters. They lived in the neighborhood of Reb Zera. That he was makar of them. Ki heiki din hadrulu b'tiyufta. They should do tshuva. So Reb Zera was very nice. But Havi kapti Rabbanon, and the Rabbanon, they were angry at him. They were makbid on Reb Zera that he was being nice to these low lives. Kinorach nafshi Reb Zera went ahead and died. Amri, they said, other idna until now. Habicharicha katin shoke. There was the short person with the burnt thighs. Davi boyel and rachmi, who would daven for us. Hashta man boyel and rachmi. Who's going to go at what and daven for us? They thought about it. Vavdu tshuva, and they did tshuva. Reb Zera, we had a meister that Reb Zera used to check himself out. That he didn't want the Eish of Gehenna to be shown on him, so he would check him out. He went to an oven one time and he burnt himself. So there he was known as, he was short, the person with burnt thighs. Okay, so they sat sholosh shurais. Amar Abai Shmamina ki noyide kula nade. When they would move, they'd all move, right? And first, when I was in the first in row number 3. Hashna my savisa li bedanve. I was the first in number 2, and now I'm going to be the last in number 1, or I'll be the last in number 2, right? Amar Abaya darmilei hachi. Havizon of la royes valti roish l'shualim. Better to be the tail of a lion than be the head of a fox. Famous Mishnah Novice, right? Says the next Mishnah. Ketzad, Ketzim Aimin Es Eidim. How do you go ahead and scare the Eidim? How do you go ahead and scare the Eidim? Al Eidim Nefashos, how you machdis Al Eidim Nefashos. So again, we spoke about guys in Dinei Mamnis. Does anyone remember? I'll remind you. By Dinei Mamnis, we tell them even the guys who hire you out to lie think of you as garbage. They think you're right. Remember, we said that another they hired out the one to. They hired out the what's his name? The guy who had the Kerem. Navos. I'm not. It was a nun. You know what I'm talking about? Not novel. No. Anyway, Ezevel, they hired people to set him up, and took the Kerem away for Achav. No, I think it's Navos. His name is Navos. Anyway, it says over there they called the Eidim, they called the Anshe B'nai B'lial. The ones they hired, they called Anshe B'nai B'lial. They called them B'lial Machas Shemayim. So that was the way you scared the Dinei Mominus. How do you scare Dinei Nefashos? We have a whole Mishnah now. How would you scare the Dinei Nefashos? Ketzim es Eidim, Al Eidim Nefashos. So Yimachnis, my son, they would bring them into a room. Uma'ayim Aleihem. Shemet Homru. Maybe you're going to go ahead and testify. Me'oimid. You can testify based upon your speculation, what you think. Umashmua, Eid Mipied, or something you heard from someone else. Maybe you saw a chosh of a guy say something, you're repeating it. Don't you know in the end they're going to set you, they're going to go through the Trishus V'Chakiris, and guess what? If you go through the Trishus V'Chakiris, you'll be set up for Zayimim. How could you testify? You with us in this place, you know? How can you testify? Be aware that Dini Mamanis Dini Nefashos is a big difference. Dini Mamanis, Adam Meisim Maman, Mischapaloi. Let's say you go ahead, you say Eidish Sheker, it costs the person money. So you make it up, you give the money, and you get a kapara. Dini Nefashos, Damai Vidam Zroy Yosav Tuluyim Boyat Seif Oilam. Hear this. If you kill somebody, not only are you killing him, you're killing all the children, all the generations that have come from him. At Seif Oilam. You're talking about who knows, right? As we're going to see. Shekema Tzinu b'Kayin. We find the first murderer in history, Kayin, Shaharigas Achiv, Shnemar, the Me'achichet Sayakim Alay Min Adama. We said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Kayin, where's your brother? And he gives the famous line, Hashem Rachi Anachi. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, the kol the Me'achicha, the voice of the bloods, the Mei, bloods of your brothers, Sayakim Alay Min Adama, screaming at me from the ground. They're screaming at me. In other words, you're telling me that you know where your brother is? His bloods, and the key word is the word demei, his bloods is screaming at me from the ground. We're in the Mishnah Lamed Zayin. We just began Nasan. We just began Lamed Zayin. The Mei Achicha Tzechem Dam Achicha. It doesn't say Eino Eimed Dam Achicha. It doesn't say the blood of your brother. Ela Demei Achicha. The bloods, plural. The bloods of your brother. Damai, his blood. V'dam Zra Yosef, and the blood of his children that he would have had. Davar Echad. Now, at this point in time, we're not saying what they would say to the Eidim. Now we're digressing to explain where you know that why was it say Demei? In other words, we're coming to explain the pasuk. They would say to him, be aware that if you're going to testify against a person and kill him, you're not only killing him, you're killing all the future generations. You would read to him the pasuk of what? Of Kayin Vehevel. And now the Gemara is just digressing to explain the pasuk. What does Demei mean? Says the Gemara, Davar Acher, Demei Achicha, Shahaya Damai Mushlach ala Eitzim v'ala Avanim. Nebuch, Kayin didn't know how to kill him. He didn't know how to kill him. He was hitting him with sticks and with stones, and it was blood splattered all over the place. So that Demei means the bloods of, means the multiple bloods. The Fikach, now we're going back to what? We're going back to the warning of the Eidim. The Fikach Nivra Adam Yechidi, a person is created alone. Lamdecha Shekola Ma'abed Nefesh Achas MiYisrael Malav Akosav Kilu Ibed Oilam Malei. Think about it. From this one person, well, guys, from this one person can come generations and generations and generations. So if you kill a person, right? You kill a person, it's like what? You killed the whole world. Like you killed the whole world, and this is a very scary thing. However, inversely, anyone who's Mekayim, who goes ahead and saves somebody, or shells a person on the Richtike Derech, right? It's like what? You're going ahead and creating a whole world. Okay, now. Now this is not part of the scaring part again. Why is a person created alone? If you had people created from different people, meaning initially they'd say, "Hey, listen, I'm better than you are because my father's better than your father." But since we all come from the same father, we can't say that. Or the meaning, if Hashem, when he created more than one person, the meaning could say, well, each God created their own individual man. Also, the fact that what you created one man shows the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Again, these are not the words of the Eidim. This is the explanation of the pasuk, right? You go to the mint, so they go ahead and they make a coin. You can be assured that what? That coin's going to look exactly alike. If it doesn't look exactly alike, you make yourself a fortune of money, right? They make a mistake, you're going to make a fortune of money. It's rare. But so therefore, everything is the same. Everything is the same. Right? Everyone comes from the same father, from Adam. And no one looks the same. It's an amazing thing about HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Every person's chayiv to say Bishvali Nivra Olam. Look at the last Rashi on the page. Bishvali Nivra Olam. Klaimar. Chashivani Ka'olam Malay. You ever feel like you're nothing? You know, again, at our ages, we're all at a point in our lives that we're all mentally healthy, well, no one needs therapy, we're in a good place. But earlier on in life, I still remember thinking of myself as a grain of sand on the beach. Like, who cares? Like, who would care about me? You know what I mean? You're going through teenage years, you go through, who knows what you're thinking? Says, if I would have known this Rashi, would have saved me a lot of money and therapy. Says Kulam Klaimar Chashav ani ka'olam malay. I'm chashav like a whole world. Like it's really es atzmei min ha'olam ba'aveira achas. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is not going to take me out of this world from one aveira. V'yimshach mimeno. In other words, I'm a world. Ich bin a Welt. I'm something. It's a fantastic thing. That's why Hakadosh Baruch Hu created one person. One person. Every person is a world unto himself. Okay, now we're getting back to guys. We're getting back to this is what they would tell the Eidim. So you just told the Eidim the following: be aware that if you testify Eid Sheker, you're killing this guy and every single generation that came from this guy. And we see how chashuv a guy is. We see how chashuv a guy is. So at the end of the day, what are you going to say? Ichtaftas, I need this. Malanu l'sar hazais, says the top Rashi guys. Lahachnis rishoina b'daiga hazais. What? Rishenu. How do I need to go ahead and mimachnas my head in this daiga? I feel all emes. Even if I'm telling the truth, who needs this? Who needs it? Very, very normal thing. Who needs it? Why would you bother this? You know what? Very often, like if you're in a car accident, you go for try to get an aid. No, I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I'm not interested. I remember I was in an accident. A guy hit me. I went right away instantaneously to the truck driver in front of me. I said, please, you saw what happened. I took down his number. The insurance company called him up. He's not testifying. He's not testifying. So again, so what do I need this for? Malana will it's sarazais, but like Nemar, who aid oira oyada im la yagid avayna yisa. Guys, if you don't testify, avayna yisa, then you're carrying an avera. In other words, you have to testify. The Torah, it's an avera not to. Yagid avayna. If you don't, im la yagid v'nasa avayna. So that's what you tell him. V'shem etoimru malanu l'chay v'demoishal zeh. Right? Oh, you know what? Good, it's an avera, but I don't want to kill the guy. I'm a liberal Jew. I don't want to go ahead and kill somebody. The Gemara knew the Jews. I don't want. So good, I'm over an avera, but at least I'm not killing somebody. On that we tell him, but like Nemar, the ubad b'shoyim rina. I think that's the lashon of the pasuk, right? Uba avoy b'shoyim rina. And when the destruction of Rishayim is a course of rina, of happiness to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, is song to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So not only are you doing don't think you're doing an avla by killing the guy, it's a mitzvah to kill the guy. But avid Rishayim rina, you're getting rid of him. It's a mitzvah to do it. So this Mishnah discussed, right, what we do to Dinei Nefashos. We bring them in, we read them the Riot Act to tell them, at the end of the day, be aware. You're going to have to go through Jisha Hakira. If you lie, even if you don't get caught, you're killing a person, and not only killing that person, you're killing the future generations that would come from that person. And as a result of that sentence, a future generation that come from the person, we have two blot of agarata. Hey, there you go. So we have this kind of hevel, everyone's smiling, good. Says the Tanabanan. Kate said Mu'amid. We said that a person shouldn't testify Mu'amid. Mu'amid means like umdana, guys. In other words, what you think. Guys, listen to this. Oimalahem, Shema Kachri Isem. Maybe this is what you saw. Sheratz Achachaveru Lechurva. You saw a guy running after his friend into a churva, into a desolate place, a broken down building. For Ratztam Acharav, and you ran after him. Umatsasem Sayef Biyadai, and you found him what? Holding a sword in his hand. V'dami metaftef, and the blood is dripping from the sword. V'harag mefarfar, and the dead person that you stab is still in his death throes. Im kachri isem, if that's what you saw, lo yisem klum, you didn't see anything. That's what we call what? That's what we call circumstantial evidence. It looks like it, but did you see him put the knife in? Did you see him put the sword in? If you didn't, lo yamaklum. That's mu'umid. Can you imagine? Tanya, Amr Shimon ben Shetach, Era bin Nechama, meaning I shouldn't see Nechama. It's a nice way of saying it. I shouldn't see Nechama. I saw a person run into what? A churva, v'ratzisi achrav, v'raisi sayif biyadoi, v'domim v'taftaf, v'horig mefarfer, v'matiloi, Russia. Mi hargul is there. Did I do it or you do it? What can I do? Shein damcha mesura biyadi. Shayom etoyra al pishnayim edim yumas hameis. How you do machshavas yipara miyosa isha harigas chaveroi. Amru leizazim misham at sheba nachash v'kishay. They didn't move there till the nachash came along and bit him to death. Umeis then and he died. Now l'chayr, guys, what's the tzushtel to this? L'chayr, he's an eid echad, right? Even if he would have seen him kill him, he couldn't testify, right? In other words, you're bringing a riot from here that's circumstantial evidence. This doesn't work, correct? But 1 second, even if it wasn't circumstantial, even if Taka saw him kill, how could he kill him? He's an eid echad. So look at top Taisvis. Midamaisi hay uvda amas nisan the Kate said mu'amid mashma the dorish mehakra the mu'amid loy mikdal the mashma al pishnayim edim sheroes hamaisa ve'achrinu have im. So that's the kasha, guys. What do you mean? The reason why you're not killing is circumstantial evidence. The reason you're not killing is because he was an Eid Echad. But when you're bringing this as a raya to what? Did you see Mu'amid? And obviously it's speaking about two Eidim, or else what are you talking about, right? So says Taisvis, everybody have to say, V'achrina havei Reb Shimon ben Shetach. There was another individual of Shimon ben Shetach. Why don't you consider them in the dialogue of the Gemara? Mishum kvaydai, because of the cover of Shimon, and the other person, I guess, was certainly not in his league. Oy ani oy ata. Reb Shimon said oy ani or ata. Lav dafka ani lashon yachid ela anu, we. No, it's don't read as ani, but anu. Anu is we. So therefore, it's there's two people there. Again, so we're just pointing out in the guts of the Gemara, there had to be two people, or else what's your raya that you don't bring mu'amid? It's one person, there's no raya. So there had to be another person. Now, what happened to this individual? He got bitten by a snake. Yeah? Now, when a person kills, his misa is sayif. He gets his decapitated. Good? Getting bit by a snake, as we're going to see in a second, is the misa of sreifa. It's the misa of sreifa, because the venom burns through the person. Says the Gemara. V'chai bar nachash hu? Is this person a bar nachash? Ve'omar Rav Yosef v'chein tani de bechizkiya miyom shechara beis hamikdash afal pishe batla Sanhedria, even though that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, so you can't have capital punishment anymore because there's no Arba Misas Bezdin. Arba Misas lay batlu. Lay batlu. Lay batlu v'batlu. What are you talking about? They're not batlu. They are batlu. If there's no Sanhedrin, we're not carrying out capital punishment. But Ella, what do you have to say? Din Arba Misas lay batlu. The din of the four Misas lay batlu. Mishin eschayiv skila. A person who eschayiv skila. Now skila again. All these in the Masech, the guys, we're going to go through exactly what they did. But they throw a person off a double his height. They throw him down. So oynayful min agag, he will fall off a roof. Oychaya dar sasai, or a chaya will throw him down hard. And the act of throwing down is tantamount with skila. Mishin eschayiv sreifa. Oynayful bidlaika, he'll either get burnt to death in a fire. Oynachash makisha, he'll only be bitten by a snake, a venomous snake. And that, I guess, the eres burns. Mishin is, I have a whole Torah on this, but I'll save it for another day, not on tape. Mishen is chayev hariga, I nimsar lemalchus, I listen by any love. Hariga, you get killed by the sword, so either they'll be given over to the malchus that used to decapitate, or they give it, or listim will kill him. Mishen is chayev chenek, a person is chayev strangulation. I tayveya benar, he'll either die he'll either drown. I mace bisser runchi, which is type of diphtheria. It's a type of disease of the throat. So therefore, we have a kasha. Why, if this person was a murderer, why is he getting killed by a snake? That snake is sreifa. And for the Gemara, this guy had another chet that was chayv sreifa. In other words, he was a murderer, but trust me, he was not tzaddik either. He had done something else that was mechuyev sreifa. So you know what he got? He got sreifa. Now, if you look at the second Taisvis down, go down in the middle of the Taisvis, Vim Taimar. In the middle of Taisvis, towards the end of the line, it says Vim Taimar. The first word in the line is Ritzicha Leihoyu Chayzrin. It says Vim Taimar. There should be like an asterisk over there. Okay? Vim Taimar. We find many people who deny HaKadosh Baruch Hu. They mesim kidarkam. They die. They're kaifrim be'ikar. They deny HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but they live and they die normally. The schus mila toila. You hear this? The schus of the mitzvah of mila protects them. And the schar that they have, the mitzvahs is paid back in this world. In other words, you could be a kaifa be'ikah and not die one of the four mitzvahs bezdin. Why? Because that's Hashem wants you to get whatever goodness in this world, and in the next world you'll get clapped. So therefore, don't judge a person. You look in this world and say, "Well, wow, this guy's a guy who does crazy averis, and look, he's not." What about the four mitzvahs bezdin? He goes, "That's not your cheshbon. First of all, there's Mila that protects him. Second of all, he has other mitzvahs that go ahead and come to the cheshbon. Trust me on this one, right? Arba Mises Bezdin is not bottle. There are people who do things. And also, if you hear a guy drowns, don't go ahead and think in your mind, well, he must have done an Avera to cause him to drown. You're not God. Someone said, oh, he drowned, so good. I like that. Anyway. Mu'umid, Bedinin Nefashas Hu Del Amdinon. We say Bedinin Nefashas Minan Amdinon, Habedinin Mamanis Amdinon. In other words, we're contrasting this Mishnah to the previous Mishnah. When it says over here, you can't testify based upon speculation or what you think, Mashma Dine Mamanis, you could. Guys, right? Because it doesn't say this by Dine Mamanis. So the assumption is, if it doesn't say by Dine Mamanis, it must be Dine Mamanis. You could go ahead and based upon what. Anyway. What? I don't know. Anyway, Bedinin nefasha sud lo yamdinan. Bedinin mamanis amdinan kiman kirvacha titanya ravacha imer gamal ha'ucher, a gamal that's literally in the back. So it could be a wild gamal. Rashi says it could be one in heat, and it's mating. Beina gamalim v'nimtza gamal harig b'tzidai, and you find a dead gamal next to it, and the owner of the dead gamal, right, wants to collect from ostensibly the gamal that was active. You can be sure that this one killed it. So what do you see? No one saw it, but it's speculative. So l'chayra, you see, he would have to pay based upon what? Conjecture, right? Ulataymech. Eid mipiyei diktani b'dinei nefashos hu deloy aminan. Habedinei mamas aminan. 1 second. Did we just say in the Mishnah that what? When they warned him, they said eid mipiyei? Did they say it by dinei mamanis? No. Do you believe eid mipiyei by dinei mamanis? No. So just like that, we don't believe, and it wasn't stated over there. Who are in speculation? Also, we don't believe by dinei mamanis. We just enlist everything. Vatnan im amar who im amar. What are you going to say? Eid mipiyei diktani b'dinei nefashos hu deloy aminan. Habedinei mamas aminan. Eid mipiyei vatnan. We had a Mishnah. Im amar who amali shani chayev loy. If this guy said that, what? I'm chayev. Ish ploini amalushu chayev loy le'amaklum. We said, guys, remember, he could be saying this just that people shouldn't think he's rich. He could be avoiding it, right? At sheyomar b'fanenu hoydaloi, in front of us, he was maidashu chayev loy mesayim zuz. Alma afagav the psile b'dinei mamanis arminan lahu b'dinei nefashos. Even though eid mipiyei was possible b'dinei mamanis, nonetheless we reiterated it by dinei mamanis of nefashos. Hachanami afagav the psile b'dinei mamanis arminan lahu b'dinei nefashos. Even though it's possible b'dinei mamanis, conjecture I made who adin by dinei mamanis. In other words, we don't hold like Ravacha. We don't disagree Ravacha. If you don't see that camel literally killed that he's chayiv, you're not going to go ahead and be mechayiv. That'll be you being a raya that he killed. We're not going to go ahead and believe it. I didn't mention over there. We didn't mention everything over there. We didn't mention Aymed. We didn't mention Eid bin Pied. And certainly Eid bin Pied applies to both cases. So who did Aymed that what on speculation and conjecture you can't go testify in both cases. You should know that if you kill a person, you're killing the whole world. Many holes, many wounds. He didn't know how to kill him. It's funny. You see that man, I always say this, man had the ability to kill without the knowledge of how to kill. There's a very, very geschmacka Rebbe Chanan in the Kovetz Maimorim. The Kadosh Baruch Hu says, Na'asa Adam, we will make man. So the Velt's Pshat is Rashi's Pshat. Hashem is talking to the Malachim. We will make man, right? And so the Malachim shouldn't go ahead and be what? They shouldn't be jealous. The Ramban says, Na'asa Adam, Hashem and the Adama. It's day 6. Everything that came out on day 6 came from the ground. By Toitzei Aretz. Na'asa Adam, we will make man. I'll give the neshama and you'll give the body. Says Rabbi Chanan Derech Musa. Nasa Adam in the pasuk before it says Hashem created all the behemoths and all the chayas. Nasa Adam, Hashem said to what? Hashem said to the chayas, "We'll make man." In man, there's a chaya. In every man, there's a chaya. There's a behemoth. There's cruelty. There's anger. There's the ability to kill. How do you go ahead in a wild animal? You need a shel barzal. You need a chain. You need a cage. The only way to go ahead and contain a man is with Yiras Shamayim. If a man doesn't have Yiras Shamayim, he's capable of being the biggest murderer in the world. And I don't have to cite examples. So you see, Cain, it was an amazing thing. Cain did not know how to kill, but in him, he was so angry, he knew he wanted to kill him. The knowledge to kill somebody was there. The know-how wasn't. But to me, it's an amazing thing, right? Why would a person want to kill somebody? Where are you created with that? Nasa Adam explains everything. Chayas were born with this ability to kill. So to Adam, this ability to kill. So Nasa Adam, he knew how to kill him. So he went ahead and he was smashing him, and he finally got his. I think the Medrash says he finally got his throat. He didn't know where the neshama got. Actually, Gil Savara. There it is. Until it got to his throat. So these are all statements, guys, from Yehuda Brei Rav Chia. What they have in common is the name of the Amora saying it over. Rabbi Yehuda, the son of Rab Chia, the twin sons, Skiskia and Rabbi Yehuda were the twin sons of what of Rab Chia. Rami the Brei Rav Chia, Miyom shepascha aretz es Pia, the kiblasai l'damish al havel, shuvlei pascha. It never opened up again. So what happened was, again, as we spoke out, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Cain, Ei hevel achicha, v'yomer, Hashem roichi anochi, lo yadati, Hashem, I don't know where he is. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, the bloods of your brother are screaming at me from the ground, meaning you couldn't see it. Usually when blood goes to the ground, you see it as a stain. There was no stain. It totally encapsulated his blood. It took in his blood. Shenemar, Michnaf Aretz Zemiros Shamanu. From the edge of the Aretz, Zemiros, your song Shamanu, Sevi Lahatzdik, praising for the tzaddik. Michnaf Aretz, from the edge of the Aretz, V'loimi Pia Aretz, but not from the Pia Aretz. So, Chizkiah asked his brother Rav Yehuda, V'tiftach Aretz as Pia, but we see that what by Kairach it did swallow up. It opened up for bad, but for good it didn't. In other words, where was the good over here? The covered Hevel, we always date Layalenu, right? Nishitskadach, Zak has to go in, they're always picking up the blood, right? So the covered Hevel, the fact that it was buried was a good thing. Okay, I'd like to spend a little time on a very, very interesting thesis. And it's just, you'll see, it's fascinating, guys. I think this is a fascinating share. Says Taisvis, Mechnaf Aretz Zemira Shamanu, Koseh B'Tshuvas HaGoinim, She'ein B'nei Eretz Yisrael Oimrim Kedusha, El B'Shabbos. They don't say Kedusha only on Shabbos. Dichsiv, Gabe Chayos, Sheish Knafayim Le'echad. The Chayos is this in the Chayos of Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Malachim that are very close to him. They have 6 set of wings. V'chol Knafhu Oimer Shira, and each one of its wings says Shira to Hashem. Achas B'Yom B'Sheish Yimei Each one 6 days of the week. U'kshegia Shabbos Oimer Machayos Amakoim Rebbeinu Shalom. Ein Lanu Oid Knaf. We only have 6. We can't praise you anymore. I got another knaf. Sho'aymer lefanai shiro. He's going to say shir in front of me. Shnemar miknaf ha'oretz zemira shamanu. From the knaf of this world, we hear zmiros. Right? Meaning, who's going to go ahead and say kedusha for me, fellas? It's bas v'dam. It's knaf ha'oretz. The knaf in this world, shamanu. I'm going to hear. L'chayr, fellas, this is a very good makor of why we say zmiros and Shabbos. What's the whole Indian of Zmiris and Shabbos, right? The Indian of Zmiris and Shabbos is what? Is this Taisvis. This Taisvis is saying, on Shabbos, we go ahead, since the Malachim are praising HaKadosh Baruch Hu the whole week, this Taisvis tells us, you know what? Come Shabbos, we say Zmiris, because we're filling the Shira that those Malachim can. They only have 6 wings. We are the Knafa Aretz. We're the Knaf of the Aretz. We're the 7th wing. And so there's a beautiful medrash that I want to share with you. I sent it out. You all should get it. I don't think I sent it to you. I didn't send it to you, Mayor. Okay, this is from the Torah Chaim. Going to me so I can. Mayor, what are you holding? Maya,
It's okay.
Maya, we're recording. Okay. Nira. Okay, Nira, top line. Nira, the Hainu Hodi Isa b'Medrash, gracious. Rabba, the Medrash Rabba, excuse me, the Medrash gracious Rabba. Tani Reb Shimon ben Yochai, Amra. Shabbos lefatnei, Amr Shabbos nei Kadosh Baruch Hu. Says Shabbos lefatnei Kadosh Baruch Hu. Rebbeinu Shloim. Lekulam yesh ben zug. Each day has its mate, right? 6 is an even number. V'li ein by zug. I'm an odd number. Amr Kadosh Baruch Hu Knesset Yisrael hu ben zugach. Who is your zug? Is Bnei Yisrael. V'kiven she'amdu Yisrael lefanei lefnei Har Sinai. Amr Kadosh Baruch Hu Zichru hadava. Remember the matter. Sharamarti l'Shabbos. Like Knesset Yisrael hu ben zugcha. That Knesset Yisrael you are Shabbos zug. Hadahu d'chsev zacher es yom Shabbos l'kadsho. Remember Shabbos l'mekadeshit. L'fisha kol yoyim mimei achoil yesh leknaf echad min achayos she'amim by kedusha. V'hu zug shaloi milashen ufarasta kinafecha ala masecha. Shu inyan zivug. That's that I spread your wing over your amma. That's I think the lashon who did is this Rus said this? I think Rus said this, right? That is lashon of zivug. Kacha chayus porshim kinafeyem. So too the chayus they spread their wings. Umikashkashim bekoil kinafeyem, and they shake with the coil of their wings. Kidapir Rashi Zal beperikein darshim. V'zeu zivugoy, and that's the zigor. They match up with each other. Ushvacha shel yoim milvad haShabbos except what she'ein leknaf lekach amra v'li ein ben zug. V'heishav la Kadosh Baruch Hu Knesset Yisrael hu ben zugha. Kloimar yeshli oid kanaf echad. I have another kanaf. Yeshli oid kanaf echad. I have another kanaf. She'amar lefnei kedusha b'Shabbos. Who said in front of me kedusha b'Shabbos. I have one more who says in front of me kedusha. Shenemar miknaf ha'aretz l'mira shemanu. V'hashta nicha hadik amar v'medrash. She'amar le'Kadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael. Zichru adava she'amarti l'Shabbos. Shenemar zachar es yom Shabbos l'kadsho. If you she'ein liyom Shabbos shum kanaf. It doesn't have a kanaf. It doesn't have a contemporary, right? Meknafei mekanfei achayas. Doesn't have a kanaf mekanfei achayas. It doesn't have it. Doesn't have the corollary. Loima ba kedusha. Lakach hizer es Yisrael loima boy. I'm reading from the next page. Yisrael loima loy. Kedusha, say Kedusha and Shabbos. V'zehu shamalem zacher es yom Shabbos l'kadsho. Remember Shabbos in Mekadeshit. Sheyiskareu loymar by Kedusha. Remember to say Kedusha, make Kiddush on Shabbos, say Kedusha on Shabbos. By you saying Kedusha on Shabbos, you know what you're doing? You're being mizavig, the kanaf of that extra. That's not there. The 6 beautiful measures. You have the 6, we don't match up. By us saying Kedusha on Shabbos, what are we doing, fellas? We're going ahead and fulfilling HaKadosh Baruch Hu's words to Shabbos, the Malach of Shabbos, who felt they didn't have a mate. Your mate is Knesset Yisrael. And by being Mekadosh Shabbos, that's what we're doing. We're going ahead, and we're mentioning that. Okay, I guess we can stop here.